Okay, so this is the video for the assignment graphing using intercepts, where our objective is obviously graphing using intercepts. So if you'll remember from a previous assignment, in order to find the intercept of an equation, if we're looking for the x-intercept, we want to make y 0. So I'll start by creating an xy chart. I will make y 0. And if I make y 0, when I directly substitute that back into this equation right here, I'll have 5 times 0, making that whole term go away. So I will be solving the equation 2x equals 10. And likewise, if I wanted to find the y-intercept, I would make x 0, and when I did 2 times 0, that would be 0, making that term go away, and I would have to solve negative 5y equals 10. So dividing both sides by 2 to find the x-intercept, I would get an x-intercept of 5. And dividing both sides by negative 5, I would get a y-intercept of negative 2. I can easily plot these points now. So 0, negative 2 will be found right here. 5, 0 will be found right here. So drawing a line through those 2 points graphs that line using the intercepts. That's the line to the equation 2x minus 5y equals 10. So for number 2, we'll do the exact same thing. We're going to do the exact same thing for the remainder of the problems. So if I make an xy chart, and I wanted to find my y-intercept, I would make x 0. Plugging that back in, I would solve the equation negative 3y equals 12, and then plugging in 0 for y to find the x-intercept, I would get negative 6x equals 12. So dividing both sides by negative 3 is going to give me a y-intercept of negative 4, and dividing both sides by negative 6 is going to give me an x-intercept of negative 2. So a y-intercept of negative 4 and x-intercept of negative 2. Those points will be right here and right here. My line is therefore going to look like this. For number 3, x minus 4y equals 8. Well, this one turns out to be pretty easy for the x-intercept. If I make y 0 and I eliminate that whole term, that whole y term, x is going to equal 8. And if I make x 0 to find the y-intercept, I'll be solving negative 4y equals 8. If I divide both sides by negative 4, that gives me a y-intercept of negative 2. So 8, 0, and 0, negative 2. It's going to look something like this. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so there's my x-intercept. The line will therefore look like this. Number 4. 2x plus 3y equals 12. Again, making an xy chart with an x value of 0. That will help me find my y-intercept, so I'll be solving 3y equals 12. If I divide both sides by 3, that would give me a y-intercept of 4. And if I make the y-intercept 0, I will be solving 2x equals 12. If I divide both sides by 2, that would give me an x-intercept of 6. So these points will be 6, 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my x-intercept. A y-intercept of 0, 4 is going to be right here. Plot your intercepts and then simply draw a line through those 2 points in order to have the line for 2x plus 3y equals 12. Number 5. If I create an xy chart for this equation, plugging in 0 for x, I will be solving 5y equals negative 5. Dividing both sides by 5 will give me a y-intercept of negative 1. And plugging in 0 for y, I will be solving 1/2 x equals negative 5. If I multiply both sides by 2, the reciprocal of 1/2, that's going to give me an x value of negative 10. So here are my points. So I have 0, negative 1, which is right here for my for my y-intercept. Negative 10, 0 right here for my x-intercept. That's going to be a line that looks like this. As you can see, it has a very shallow slope. And number 6. Create an xy chart. So if I make x 0, I will have 2y equals 15. dividing both sides by 2, and I will get a y value of 7.5. It's easier to work with decimals when you're trying to graph. It's much easier to graph 7.5 than it is 15 halves. So just remember that when you're graphing, it's probably easier to graph decimals than it is improper fractions. So now if I take y and make it 0, I will solve 3 halves x equals 15. Now multiplying the left hand side by 2/3, because that's the reciprocal of 3 halves, and multiplying the right hand side by 2/3. Remember, you can cross cancel the denominator 3 with 15. That would be leave me with 5 right here, and 5 times 2 is 10. So we will have an x value of 10 for my x-intercept. So with that being the case, 0, 7.5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. That's going to be right in the middle of 7 and 8 on the y-intercept. And then an x value of 10, which is going to be right here. So drawing a line through those 2 points. Sorry, my line got a little crooked. There is the line using intercepts of 3 halves x plus 2y equals 15. Number 7, making an xy chart. If I make x 0, I will be solving the equation 42y equals 84. If I divide both sides by 42, that will give me a y value of 2. And if I make the y value 0, that will give me negative 21x equals 84. If I divide both sides by negative 21, that would give me an x value of negative 4. So a y value of 2 and an x value of negative 4 is going to look something like this. And drawing your 2 lines through the 2 points, and that's graphing negative 21x plus 42y equals 84 using the intercepts. Number 8, negative 7x equals 21. That's what will be left with the xy chart if I make y 0, and if I divide both sides by negative 7, that's going to give me an x value of negative 3. Making x 0, I'll have negative 3y equals 21, and if I divide both sides by negative 3, that would give me a y value of negative 7. So we will have negative 3, 0, and then 0, negative 7, and graphing that line will look something like this. Number 9. If I make an xy chart for this one, this would be 0 for x is going to leave me with negative 5y equals 30. Making 0 for y is going to leave me with 5x equals 30. So dividing both sides by negative 5 is going to give me y equals negative 6. Dividing both sides by 5, I will have an x value of 6. So y value of negative 6, x value of 6. 0, negative 6 can be found right here, and 6, 0 can be found right here. So graphing the line through those 2 intercepts, this is the line to the graph 5x minus 5y equals 30, to the equation 5x minus 5y equals 30. For the last problem, number 10, making an xy chart again. Remember, if I'm finding my y-intercept, x is 0. So if I make x 0, that will give me 3 halves y equals 6, multiplying the right and the left-hand side by the reciprocal of 3 halves, which is 2/3. Don't forget, you can cross-cancel the 6 and the 3, leaving me with a 2 right here. And that is going to give me a y value of 4. So my y-intercept is 0, 4. And then if I make y 0, that's going to leave me with the equation 3/4 x equals 6. Remember, if I multiply the left-hand side and the right-hand side by 4/3, I can cross cancel the 3 and the 6, leaving me with a 2, and that will give me an x value of 8. So that is my x-intercept. So 0, 4 and 8, 0 are the points that I will be graphing for my intercepts. 2, 4, 6, 8. So my line for that particular equation will look like this by finding the intercepts.